Welcome to the Play-Based Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Kristen R.B. Peterson, and maybe your new teacher bestie that is here to hype you up, maybe give you a motivating kick in the pants, and teach you all I know about play and childhood. I am here to help you challenge old and outdated practices and inspire you to create a truly developmentally appropriate early childhood environment that fosters creativity, curiosity, and joy in the children that you care for. Let's set the stage for a lifelong love of learning. Let's get going. I have Finn Menzies with me on the podcast. We were just chatting right before this, and I had to press record because I just wanted to capture this. And if we leave it in, we leave it in. If we don't, we don't.
Okay,
but you were
great.
saying how you were so serious when you were a teacher. You
Yeah.
just take it seriously. Tell me more.
I think so Mr. Rogers wasn't sure if he was going to be a musician or a minister or teacher,
Yeah.
because his work with children was about making the world a better place. And I think I very much come from that lineage. It was like spiritual work for me. This is the next generation. And I have a responsibility to take care of them and also prepare them.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't just the classroom for me. Um it was my heart legacy, what I'm leaving the
Wow.
world. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I took it so seriously, too seriously.
But why do
So
you say
what I
too
knew
seriously?
though,
Okay.
what?
I was going to say, why do you say too seriously? Because taking it seriously is good,
hmm
but what puts it over the edge of too serious?
Because I know that children need safe places to explore and to play and to their creativity is so important for their development. And if you're holding the world on your shoulders all day long, then that play becomes performative. You
Absolutely.
can't really enter that world of creativity if you're thinking that your every step you make is affecting the world.
So I feel like a lot of early childhood educators, especially those in this play-based realm that understand the value of play in childhood and why we need to embrace it and let children keep that creativity for a little bit longer. There is this heavy weight on us, it seems, at all times. So, what do you think makes the difference between somebody who, um, um, uh, okay, maybe the difference between you and me in our teaching practices when we were the difference between me is I could be 100% present and joyful and um I was never in a survival mode as a preschool teacher after a certain, like a year.
Yeah.
I was present and I was always you have an idea? Okay, what are we going to do with that idea? If they wanted to do something with that idea and building on things. And it was fun and carefree and it
Mm,
has challenges all the time. But
yeah.
my time in the classroom was beautiful and amazing and playful. And so what makes it what is the difference? What do you think?
Yeah. I think the main difference is that as you were growing as a teacher, you were internalizing, in your bones and your body memory and your muscle memory, what you offer for kids is also beneficial for you.
Mm-hmm.
So you were play in me is important, play in them is important. And I think the trap that parents and early educators get into is that they get so hyper focused on children
Yeah.
that they actually don't take their own medicine.
Yeah.
And then when that rift gets bigger and bigger, right? It gets harder to honestly, it gets harder to connect.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
that's what they need, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
connection. So
How many years were you in the classroom?
I was in so many different classrooms. So technically, I've been a teacher since 2009.
Mm-hmm.
I started with AmeriCorps in juvenile court school.
Oh, interesting. What is
Yeah, that's how I
that?
started.
What is that?
So kids 7th to 12th grade who had like minor infractions, like maybe they didn't go to enough school, for example, instead of going to juvie, would go to this school where they were always in contact with their probation officer. Um, and so I taught literacy
Okay.
there for
Okay.
7th to 12th graders in
Wow.
small groups. Yeah, wild. Wild to be 22 and doing that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Definitely not prepared. And then after that, I had this idea that I was like gonna be this like poetry teacher that inspired people to, love their life. I wanted to be Robin Williams in Dead Poet Society.
Okay.
So then I did community college English 1 for a hot second, and I actually loved it, but I got paid nothing. Worse than a preschool teacher.
Weird.
Yeah. So to supplement, I did early and aftercare.
Okay.
And during that time where I was teaching English 1 and then also being with young children, it was like right as my transition was really bubbling up in me.
Yeah.
And the way that I related with children, like I felt so seen.
Yeah.
And so that's what I say is like that relationship was so much more reciprocal for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's what I want to do all day is be around them and be seen by them.
Yeah.
So then in 2014, I got my K through 6 credential and had been
Okay.
doing it until this year.
Oh my gosh. And like, what took you out of the classroom?
Oh, burnout.
Mm.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I keep going back to this moment after I graduated with my BA,
Mhm.
and we're all having this big party in our apartment. And I was sitting with my friend's grandmother, who was a school nurse,
Mhm.
and she had just retired. And I was like, how did you know in your body that you were ready to like give up this 30 years of being a school nurse? And she was like, I woke up one day and I was afraid I was going to do more harm than help.
Oh.
So I just called in and was like, I won't be coming in today.
Oh my
And
gosh.
like, I don't know why that conversation like impacted me so much, but like I said, like I take my job so seriously and I could just start seeing like disalignment of who I wanted to be in the classroom.
Mm.
It was getting more and more like I couldn't access my capacity to be who I wanted to be for them.
Yeah.
And then so I think COVID, like there was so much exodus of teachers, which meant that
Mhm.
there was this influx of young teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so our school had a lot of young teachers.
Mhm.
And I was like considering, I'm like, what is better for a young child? Someone who doesn't know what the F they're doing, but is doing it joyously,
Or
or someone like me who's collected a lot of stories and wisdoms over the years, but can't sort through what is in their principles and what isn't, and so all day
yeah,
long, just like in this reckoning sort of position. And I was like, oh man, I mean, it's probably like comes out the same.
it does, I bet.
Yeah. And so I was like, maybe just like move over for some new blood.
You you know what's interesting is my daughter, she is a seventh grader and goes to public school, and she has like 7 class blocks a day. So
Mhm.
she doesn't stay with the teacher for longer than 45 minutes at a time, probably. And that gets me thinking like, okay, if we know that like relationships and safety and connection are like the foundation of learning, how is this working out for them? And the interesting thing is she got in the car yesterday. I had to pick her up a little early, and she had a Jolly Rancher in her hand. Like, where'd you get that? She's like, oh, I walked by my science teacher's room when I was on my way out, and I said goodbye, and she tossed it to me. And I was like, was she in the middle of teaching? And she's like, no, she doesn't have a class the last hour. And I was like, that's pretty cool. So her science teacher is brand new this year, brand new teacher, right out of college. And my daughter has like an amazing connection with her. And I don't think it even matters what she teaches. My daughter would bow down and learn anything from her.
Yeah.
She doesn't have that with any of the other adults in that school. That's the
Yeah.
only one. And for me, it's like, okay, so this teacher, I could look at it as, because the other thing that I've noticed too is that this teacher will come outside at the end of the day with the children who are the kids, the tweens who are, the parents pick them up. So we have like this big parent pickup line, and there's a few teachers that have to stand out there to kind of monitor the line.
Yeah.
And she looks like one of the kids. Like I didn't even know she was the teacher. And like she
Yeah.
stands with the group of kids and they're all laughing around her and they're showing her TikToks on their phones and all these things. And part of me was like, ooh, this teacher needs to learn some boundaries. But
Hmm.
then I'm also like, my daughter loves it
Yeah.
and she's learning from her. So like there is that, like, what is best?
Exactly. I think that's what I want to talk about today is like, I think one of the things that we're shedding, what I'm so glad about around our culture of education is teacher performance.
Okay.
And I think it's going to be a really healthy thing for teachers
Okay.
and students and parents.
So tell me, what does teacher performance mean to you?
Okay, so I grew up in like Reagan era whiteness,
Mm-hmm.
where my parents really believed in like financial mobility, class mobility,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like also like capitalism should be noble. That's the kind of like culture I had in my family. So like I always knew that I was going to be in a job that was of service to people. And so my idea of a teacher was like very formal and um like almost like yeah, like feudal, like a hierarchy of like I have a responsibility to educate these children, and that comes with this like really non-human performance around how you react with parents and kids, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, almost like it feels like it's something out of The Crown, you know?
Yeah.
And I think, that's where this misconception that teachers are non-human came from is like we both participated, parents and teachers participated in this thing that the classroom is different from home, that teachers are in this other level than parents when we're really just all people.
Mm-hmm.
So what it looks like is formal language and like the way we communicate with emails and newsletters, what we wear in the classroom, what we say to each other, what we keep from each other. I think that's maybe the
Mm-hmm.
biggest part. What we don't tell each other.
Yeah.
Um, so what I like about the teacher of your daughter is that she is letting her relationship that she has with kids be seen by parents on the street.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that I thought was not allowed,
Mm.
right? Like, um, I always had the sense that parents didn't understand how close even I was to like very young children. Like it's that bond is so like visceral,
Yeah.
and I never really allowed them to see it because I thought it was taboo, you know. So I was performing this distance.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. So I almost, hmm. Now I think that in my practice, put on this performative aspect when working with the parents, at home caregivers, because this is still how I show up in public. I
Hmm.
don't show up in public is how I show up in public because I do not want to perform anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like
Yeah.
I did have to put on this performance because I had founded this amazing program in this small little town and it was new and it was the next cutting edge thing and everybody wanted a part of it and I had to put on this huge like public face. And now like when I go to Target, I hate going in Target. I used to love going in Target. I don't like going in Target anymore because I don't want to have to small talk people. I'll go in
Yeah.
Targets in different towns, but I don't want to have to perform. anymore. It's so
I
tiring.
know. It's so tiring. And you know what's really interesting is that the what we think is happening when we're both participating in that performance is that it's making the other person feel safe. Like when you're using the
Yeah.
educational terms and when you set up your classroom a certain way and parents come in, you're saying, I'm curating this performance to help you feel safe. When really, I don't think it does that
Oh,
ultimately
it's not authentic. So if
because
it's,
it's not authentic and it doesn't give the other person permission to be their messy human self.
yeah,
So, like, basically, you erase any space for mistakes.
yeah,
And when there's no room for mistakes, that's when things start to get like pinchy,
yeah.
you know?
Okay, so I just love that this conversation is like totally, we're just going off wherever we want.
We're just within.
But that's what this is, that's what's authentic. So, now I'm thinking about how I perform on stage
Hmm.
in front of audiences that I'm
Yes.
teaching. I feel like I show up really authentically as myself online and in my
Hmm.
trainings and whatnot. But now when I keynote, I feel like it's maybe not, it's a performance. But is that what a keynote is? I don't know. Now I'm gonna have to like
Yeah.
do a lot of
Okay. So
reflecting on my speaking practice.
I think that performance is fine. Like, let's think about like when we were back in the classroom and we were doing like a read aloud,
Yeah,
like to be completely like a caricature of yourself and like get into it and like that performance is healthy, right?
yeah,
Because it's it's multiple people participating in art,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's when you do it so repetitively that you start believing that that's you
Mm,
or that's a necessity for relationship.
absolutely.
That's when it gets sticky and tricky and that's when we start hurting. But like if you're getting up there and like jazzing a bunch of teachers up, right? That's almost like consensual
Hmm.
in that like they're there for a performance. It's
Right,
not they what I'm trying to say is that they know that that's not really you. They're coming for theater
right,
rather than a parent who comes up to you in Target.
right.
They want to believe that that is you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So tell me about the relationships then that you had with parents when you were in the classroom and what that looked like and what you wish it had looked like.
It's funny because my wife would say like if my wife was here, she would say, you've always had really good rapport with parents.
Yeah.
Like they've always liked you. Like there's never any contention. And I'm like, yeah, but what did I sacrifice for that?
Mm.
So I did hop around, and I have to say, I feel like the most authentic relationships I had were in places I weren't there for very long. So, like the most real relationships I had was Title I school, a rural school,
Mm.
and then when I got into my funnel of affluent white early educator, especially like private preschool niche, once I was in there, um, yeah, I worked that baby. I worked it. Um, it's and what did that look like? Um, it looks like a little bit of fawning. Rich people like to
Mm.
be flattered
Mm. Hmm.
and not having explicit language around their kids' growth
Okay.
or what's showing up with their kids. And also like making myself small.
Mm.
Not like I wasn't denigrating myself, but I wasn't showing off my talents either because I was really scared about being a queer male early
Yeah.
educator.
Yeah.
I was just so not wanting to face the somebody coming up to me to say like you're a pedophile or something,
Mm. Yeah.
or you're
Yeah.
using this for your agenda. So
Mm.
I just really circumvented that. So I probably perpetuated a lot of things that weren't in alignment for me.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so it looked like somebody, I almost should have been like on Mad Men or something, like I was good at the schmooze. You
Yeah.
know, I was good at the parent conferences and like showing them how many letters they knew and, making the classroom looked like, one of those pictures on Instagram that you'd want to come. And
Yeah.
those parents love that shit.
Mhm. They
Yeah.
do.
You know what they never asked was like, um, how do you see my child or how do you love my child? That never came up.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so interesting, right? Like,
You know what? I don't think that comes up for a lot of people.
that's insane.
I've never asked that at one of my kids'
But do you
conferences.
feel that on the inside?
Um, I do. I wonder, like when my now almost 16-year-old son went to kindergarten, I made this horrible realization that we send our children to somebody we don't even know. We don't know how they're going to love them. We don't know how they're going to show up for them. We don't know what their values are. We don't know how they're going to interact with our children or even if they will. And you send your tiny little 5-year-old into this building and you don't even get to choose who is your child's full-time caregiver. Like
Yeah.
I came to that realization. I was like, this is gross. Like, why do we do this to 5-year-old children? I don't have a choice. I don't
Yeah.
like this. And so, yes, I do want to know.
Yeah. So you feel it in your body, right? Like,
Yeah.
who's this person spending 8 hours with my child? And like, do they see the same person that I see? And if they don't, who are they seeing?
Yeah.
Are they giving them care? Is it, like I
Yeah.
feel like we're all holding that in our bodies. And I think that was one of the reasons why I burnt out was the dissonance between what I was performing and how much I really wanted to tell parents. Like I really just straight up wanted to say, I love your child
Mhm.
so much. And I love that they are learning not to like pull someone's hair out. And
Yeah.
I love that they're learning that screaming is really inconvenient when you're in a public space. Like I loved them as people and I also loved their trajectory of becoming. And I like never could say that. I don't know why I couldn't. And so now the reason why I'm a parent coach is because I get to say that.
Okay, so tell me what does the parent coach do? What do you do? What's your job now?
Um, people
What's
pay
your
me.
work now? What's your play now?
Yeah, they pay me to validate them basically.
Amazing.
Um,
Good.
because parents do a lot of things right,
I do.
you know.
But we never
Um,
feel like we're doing enough.
but you never feel like you're doing enough. And so it's basically just being a mirror for parents. And then also like a lot of work around unlearning and destigmatizing.
Okay.
That was another thing that was really hard for me, especially in those affluent white spaces, was I did not feel a deficit for a child if they had extra needs. They
Mhm.
weren't less to me. My love was intact for them, and I wanted to give them accommodations. And when I would try to hint that way in that passive aggressive white lady way, um, it was always like very shocking and like defensive feeling. And I'm like, the messaging that you're giving me is that if your child has extra needs, like they're less worthy.
Mm.
That's what I'm hearing, you know? Um, yeah. So now I get to do that work. I really like doing that work with parents
Yeah.
where they're like, this is the message I got from my parent, and I'm trying to take some of it and trying to leave part of it. And I'm afraid that I'm going to give something another complex to my child. And so like doing that unpacking work, um, and basically coming to the realization that like your child's gonna have stuff.
Yeah.
And are you gonna show up to say, I could have done better, or tell me how to do better?
Right.
Yeah. So I'm healing myself in being able to almost take time back to be more authentic with parents.
Okay. So how, how do parents find you? How do they work with you? How do they like know who you are?
Good question. I need you for my marketing. I okay. Um, so because I'm in my era of authenticity,
Yeah.
I haven't I haven't been really focused on um making money or like making this a business
Yeah.
because I don't want to get into selling a product.
Yeah.
So it's very right now I'm just like in the like word of mouth thing.
Okay.
So you can
Okay.
find me on Instagram and get like a feeling of what I have to offer. And then through there you can sign up with a session for me.
Amazing.
Um yeah,
Okay. So that's for anybody who wants to work with Finn.
please
Beyond
find me.
this,
Yeah,
find him. Okay. Back to back to the podcast content. Um, okay. Can you give tips? Is there any like what are some of your like main tips for maybe somebody who's listening to this who's like, yeah, I am putting on a performance. I don't really want to do that anymore. It's exhausting. How can they start releasing some of that stuff?
yeah. So I invented a term called human signaling,
Okay.
which is in what ways from the very beginning of the relationship. So, like, let's say you find out a child's on your roster. How can you signal to the other person that you're human? And like it takes some risk, right? Because we're sort of we are definitely expecting the performance. That's
Yeah.
what we're showing up as. So to like say, oh, I'm not going to do that, it might be like showing something funny to a parent, or showing something of your personal life to a parent,
Mm.
or letting the classroom be totally messy.
Yeah.
Yeah, letting yourself be messy. Being like, I wear my sweatpants today. I have
Yeah.
those days, so like ways that you can show like I'm human. I come in a lot of different ways. I have all the different feelings.
Okay.
I think that allows parents, at first, they're going to be like, just how you were, where you're like, is this okay?
Yeah.
You need boundaries. And then once they get to see that their children feel so grounded and happy and safe and seen, they're like, okay, whatever, wear your sweatpants. And then they
Yes.
get permission. It gives them permission
Yeah.
to signal back. Like, I
Okay.
made a mistake today. Like, oh boy, we got in early. We did not have time to like we did not have time with breakfast this morning. So I gave them a bunch of chewy bars in the car, and now they're having a total meltdown. And you're like, yes, totally.
Okay. So I'm wondering now. So like, we have this teacher performance
Yeah,
and part of the human signaling is letting people know the messy parts,
the messy parts.
the
Yeah.
parts that you don't show people normally.
Yeah. Which
And
is
that's
kind of
okay. We can do that.
vulnerable. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really like being, I think the reason why I call it human signaling instead of vulnerability is that I want teachers to gauge what feels like sustainable for them, manageable, because you don't know each other yet.
Right.
So after you signal, I think the next thing that to do is what you know best is like you need to play. Like the
Yeah,
grown-ups need to play
absolutely.
and have conversations like this where they're laughing, but also their hearts are breaking and they're like, yes, they need to have that mutual yes.
Hmm.
I think that's why the village is so important. Parenting and teaching can feel so lonely because it's the worst kind of lonely where you're lonely surrounded by people. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah,
And so when you get that mutual yes validation, it eases up that loneliness and then things feel more manageable
absolutely.
on both sides.
Why don't we do this? Why aren't we taught to do this?
Um, liability.
Yeah.
Why aren't we? I think it comes from suspicion that um people will harm each other if they know each other.
Mm.
And so we have to rewrite that narrative
Yeah.
that if we know each other, we'll take care of each other.
Yeah, we will.
Because we will,
Yeah, we will.
especially if the collateral is the most precious thing in the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Okay, so do you want to design like a welcome event?
Yeah.
Yeah, like what would we do now that we don't
Okay.
want to perform? And we are having 20 parents or whatever come to our space. What do we
Okay.
do to signal our humanness to them and that we're going to take a different route?
Okay. What would I do? Oh my gosh, this is fun.
Yeah.
What would I do to signal my humanness? I would have my hair up in a messy bun because I didn't have time to curl it for you.
Yep. Great.
Um, I would not be wearing shoes.
Yes, love that. Good.
Um, and that was one that I never wore shoes in the classroom ever.
Yeah.
I would wear slippers or socks or bare feet.
Yeah.
Um, I would have adult music on that I like.
That was my first one, having good music on.
Yeah.
I was thinking like the anti-Instagram like being projected on like the whiteboard. Like, like you usually get there and it's like about me. And it's like, I've been a teacher for this long. I love gardening and hiking. Mine would be like, this is what my living room looks like right now.
Here are photos of my house.
This is photos of my house with my kids' toys all over the place.
This is my child's car seat with chicken nuggets half eaten, shoved in the
I
crack.
would love, wouldn't that be so awesome as a about me for teachers?
Yes.
And then yeah, and then you could have some kind of like instead of like get to know you icebreakers, it would be like
Okay, I have
what
to.
food is jammed in your car seat right now?
Yes, your face just then. Like, I wish that this was a video because your face, you just like had the most disgusted face. But yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Like, what's
Yeah.
shoved in the cracks of your car seat right now?
Yeah. And
Mhm.
like so that's another thing that parents don't ever do. Can you think of the times that you were belly laughing with parents for the kids that you took care of?
I can think of a few moments, and I have
A
to tell you
few.
one of them and why.
Tell
Because
me.
I'll remember it forever. I was doing their parent teacher conference and they were youngish like me and I don't know, I think I was like second year preschool teacher and this was my traditional preschool days. And the parents worked at one of them was a mortuary
Yeah.
mortician. And the wife married into that. So they were talking about how I don't know how we got on the subject, but they were talking about how he was preparing a body at some point. And she was helping to get this body onto, they were the only ones in the funeral home, and their kid was there with them, playing out in the other room. And he called her into the room quick to like help get this body like situated in some way, shape, or form. And so they're like lugging this naked, dead person, trying to like get them situated, and their kid comes in.
Yes.
and and instead of being like all secrety about that happening, they were just like, we're human, we were moving this body. Yes, it's
Yes.
really sad because that is somebody's loved one,
Yes.
but also like this moment was really comical after the fact.
Okay, I love this family already. Love them already. There's so many things that you get from that. Like, one, like building a culture where you can ask for help.
Yeah.
Two, like, all bodies are good bodies, even if they're not living bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Like nakedness is not weird.
Yeah.
Um, there's just like so many things you can learn from that. And like that's what makes relationships fun. That's what makes living fun,
Yeah.
are those stories. And so, like, how do we make space for that? So human signaling, play.
Yeah.
And I think after that, that's where trust comes from. And only after you really have trust, which is like both as a professional, but as a person too, like both of those, then you can like really enter in brave space together
Mm-hmm.
where you don't have to do the eggshell walking,
Yeah.
right? And you can really say to them, like, these are the ways that I see that your child is flying. And these are the ways I really see that they're struggling, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, how do you want to do that together? Like, how do we want to lift them up together?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Mm. Well, I know that I would want you to teach my children if you were back in that
Oh,
space.
you might not know that if you met me 10 years ago, I would have like shown up with my tie and been like, hello.
Nice to meet you.
Yes. Welcome. I have all of our things that we're going to go going over the year here.
Yeah.
These are all our learning
This is our
targets.
rigorous academic curriculum for the year. We have
Yeah, you probably would have
academic
been like,
rigor here.
gross. And then you would have left, and I would have had the crown on for 2 hours with your child and playing tea party and
Yeah,
talking about how it's okay to like have all your feelings and be human and like holding space for them while they cried and wiping their butts.
yeah,
Like you don't get to see that.
yeah.
You know? Yeah. But now you do. Here I am.
Oh my gosh. Do you think I'll ever go back?
Yeah. I
Hmm.
think so. You know how you were saying it's so weird that I'm sending my child to somebody that I have no idea? That
Yeah.
seems a little bit like ludicrous.
Hmm.
If I went back, I would want more agency in who I was in relationship with.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me because I really don't want to get funneled again into only people who have access.
Hmm.
So I would have to find some sort of like radical pay scale model.
Yeah.
But it would be like, are we a good fit for each other? Like, I think we would do like an interview process before. But then I can't even help it. Like, my child's a toddler, you know?
Hmm.
And by the time I get her and the time I actually sign out, there's been an hour. I spend an hour in her classroom and in the 1 year old's classroom. I can't help it. Like, I
That's for
love
fun.
them.
Oh,
I
they
know.
probably all love you too, and you probably developed this amazing like human relationship with these people, and they adore you, I'm sure.
Yeah. And so now my work now is like, don't let that muscle habit of like being at attention like a soldier if a parent comes in and sees me in that relationship,
Yeah.
you know? Because like other parents will like by the time I'm done, the other parents are going to the cubbies to pick up their kid, and their kid's like fully just engrossed in like a block tower with me, and they're like, "Who's this man on the carpet?" But you know what though? I've made a lot of not friends, but I've had a lot of warm encounters with
Hmm.
parents. And like a few of them have even asked questions because they're like, we see you with the kids and like it feels like natural to you. Like, do you have a way to make this feel easier? And I'm like,
Hmm.
yeah, sure. So yeah, just being brave enough to be like to be witnessed. Like, yeah, I make relationships with young children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about, and you don't have older children yet. I have
Mhm.
teenagers, so like all 18 all the way down to 9. So in my own home, how do you, I want to know your thoughts on parenting and human signaling. Like,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
because I feel
Yes.
like there's this parenting style where the children don't actually know their parents because
Yes.
there's like this top-down approach and like formal and like, I'm raising you, and it's kind of the same mentality, but like if you know me, it's like I like fart on my children and hold them under the covers so that they can't get out after I've farted under the covers. Like it's singing and dancing, not all the time, but sometimes it's like I mean, yeah, like I just had a major surgery and one of my children, my seventh grader, she's like, I don't even know if I can put this in the podcast, but she's like, nice boobs, mom. Like, like that's so like how as a parent coach looking in on that, I
Yeah.
mean, how does all of that fit together? What are your thoughts on all of that?
Okay. Um, I think a lot of us were raised in an authoritarian model,
Mhm,
which was top down. And so, for example, like one of the ways that gentle parenting gets warped is in exactly what you're talking about, which is that the parent is doing all of the holding space and the regulation, and the kid is not doing any of the regulating themselves. And so it's not like we're like, I'm holding all the power and you get none in a mean way, but it is sort of has a similar presence
mhm,
because the messaging there, when you don't let your kid see that you're human, is that being human is something that you grow out of.
mhm,
Like you're allowed to do that as a kid, but then when you're a grown up, you need to be a cyborg that makes no mistakes and
mhm.
is always available, to hold space
Yeah.
for someone else. So I think that there's no really like clear-cut answer because it's not clean. And
Mhm.
it's really like a dance of reciprocity. It's
Yeah.
a dance of getting to know your children, of like how much of them can they see of me without them holding,
Mhm.
right? And then also, but also calibrating like what do I want them to hold? Because they can hold some.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
absolutely.
Um, like our kids can see us have emotion.
Yeah.
That's okay,
Mhm.
and that's how they learn their own sense of their boundaries. And so we can just have an open conversation with that. Like you can say, I'm feeling really like, for example, my child does not like it if I'm wild
Oh,
because I'm not usually.
okay.
So our home, okay, let me just tell you, one of the things that is about me is that I keep trying to make this home with a toddler seem like a Zen spa. It's so unsustainable. It is so like not a thing that anyone should do. And so when she gets home after our hours of spending time with the babies, it's like literally like Enya is playing, and then I have like a lavender count like a candle going, and
Mm.
then I'm like bringing out the Montessori like wood blocks,
Mhm.
and I'm like I peeled some oranges for you. So then if I like want to play Taylor Swift and like have a dance party, she's like, "No.
No.
Oh, what is happening?" You
Oh
know?
my gosh.
But like so for me, it's like this is part of me too.
Yeah.
you know, and to say to her, like, hey, you know what? Loudness is not bad. We don't have to have it all the time. And like, let's try loud out for a while.
Yeah.
And for you, you can be like, hey, guess what? I'm going to be there when you're having like a really hard friendship problem, and I'm going to listen and hold space for you. And then after you're feeling better, I'm going to hold you under the covers and fart on you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I also make them now my new thing is I make them hug me for 20 seconds.
Oh, well, that's just like good for everyone because everyone's getting oxytocin.
I know. That's why I'm like the only way that a hug is actually does anything health wise for you if it's 20 seconds. So you're getting a 20-second hug.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay. Yeah.
you went in because you kind of I noticed this shift in you because you went from, you know, you're like you're telling people about this whole thing, and then I felt your humanness
Oh,
switch. And
good.
this is a signal, I think, that you people can pay attention to. When somebody says, okay, and
Yeah.
like leans it, like,
Leans in.
okay,
Let me
let,
tell you,
let me
let me
tell you the real
dish.
story. That's a signal. And when you said
Yeah.
that, and I was like, oh, we're getting the real thing now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So totally. I think what's hilarious. So one of the most human things you can do is like point out your contradictions, your ironies, your frailties.
Yeah.
And so like my whole shtick is like build more reciprocity with you and your toddlers, like how can you be human and them also be human? And
Mhm.
how can you be in alignment as a parent, but also make mistakes, right?
Yeah.
And then here I am just like cleaning up after every child's crumb. It's
Yeah.
like so not in my practice, but being able to say like these are the ways that I don't follow my practice because I'm a
Yeah.
human being
You
is
admit
that's
it.
using.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. I think one of the ways that I have been able to gauge how human people are with me when I am speaking is when I bring up boogers.
Mm,
Because, um, so like if you ever bring up the topic of boogers in a big room full of a lot of adults, they get really uncomfortable, especially when you talk to them and call them out for picking their nose in the car. So, everybody, I don't care. Every adult at some point has like taken their thumb and done the little thumb action of the booger in
yeah.
the car. Some people go all in. I found this on the website. Suri thought I was talking to her about boogers. Um, like all adults in the car pick their nose. Like
Yeah.
I'm sure at least 90% of adults do this. And there's
Yes.
no Kleenexes generally, right?
Yeah. So you're gonna flick
And
it.
then they're doing it in traffic. So you get to wherever you're going. You don't make a beeline right for the bathroom to wash your hands.
Yeah. That's
So
true.
there is like so many adults walking around with booger germs on their hands at all times.
Yes.
All times. Except we have this thing where we have to tell children they can't pick their nose ever. And like
I
we call
know.
them out. And I'm guilty. I did it. I did it.
Yeah.
Like I did that in circle time. Like, don't pick your nose. That's gross. That's germs. Go wash your
Yeah.
hands. And I can tell the people who are willing to have those human signals with me are the people in
Yeah.
that audience who raise their hand and say, "That's me. I picked my nose in the car."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Those people who are more willing to say it for themselves are going to be more willing to let their kids in their care be human.
Yeah.
Um, I think about it all the time, especially post-COVID. Like, the booger germs thing is like so heightened
Yeah.
post-COVID.
Mm-hmm.
You and I think about like what Jude's weird thing about us when she grows up, where she's like, I can't believe my parents were like that. That was so like toxic and weird.
Yeah.
And I was thinking,
Like when my
like,
mom would lick her thumb and like get the ketchup off my face. But then
yeah,
it was never, well, maybe it wasn't ketchup, but then like my skin would always smell like ketchup after that. Have you ever licked your skin and then smelled it like 45 seconds later? It smells like ketchup.
ew.
I know you're gonna notice it now.
No, I
I
am
always notice
visible.
that when like
Okay, I'm gonna say that that's like a level two on the scale that I'm thinking of because
okay.
like that's not gonna like harm your personhood.
Okay.
I'm like noticing like when I take Jude to the movie theater and someone sneezes, like because of COVID
Yeah,
and like being in public space, my whole body's gonna flinch,
same.
where I'm like, don't cough in public. And she's gonna be like, Jesus, like that messaging that like you couldn't be ill, like that's messed up, you
It is
know?
messed up.
Anyways, we're always giving these unconscious messages through our modeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And so what I'm saying is like if somebody's willing to be more human with other adults, if they're willing to show that vulnerability, then they're gonna learn that vulnerability is okay so they can do it with kids. You know what I
absolutely.
mean? Because it is kind of weird that
Mhm.
how many arbitrary no's. It's not weird, it's wrong. How many arbitrary no's we give them a day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that will just make a person shrink.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need more yes, we need more permission.
We knew
That's
it.
just
We
why I love
absolutely,
the work that you do, is that you give adults and kids permission to be human.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I like how you
Uh,
frame that for me. Because for me, sometimes it feels like I'm calling people out, you know, or like it can feel icky sometimes. Because like in order to like make people realize some of the things they're doing, you have to just like point blank say it.
yeah.
And that can feel icky sometimes for me and for other people. But it's human for me too, learning how to balance all of that as well.
You know, so one of the things that I do is I give trainings or workshops on how to be inclusive of all genders in the classroom and gender development through ages 0 through 5.
Mhm.
And what I find so interesting is that many cis women have a lot to say about their gender. So what I'm trying to say is like there's like a little bit of the same thing. There's that like I'm calling them in to be like, how are you saying no to someone around their gender identity? And what it brings up is actually for them, like all the no's that they've been told.
Yeah.
And so that calling in can also be a vulnerable thing that can be connective. It doesn't have to be like shaming.
Yeah.
It can be like, hey, like this is a mistake that I made, and like maybe you're making it, and
Mm-hmm.
like what do you want to do with that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm. I feel like you need to run a retreat and I need to come to it because I feel like I would be a whole new person after.
I feel like that too, though. Like, can we retreat swap?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, I think we should go to yours first. Like, we should paint each other's bodies and like get a lot of googly eyes, flick our boogers. And then
Yeah.
after we get that out, like we get to like feel the clean in our bodies after playing,
Yeah.
then we can do like all the feeling stuff.
We might have just come up with a new idea of a joint retreat where I
I
run the
love
first
it.
half and you run the second half.
Yeah, teach your self-care, time to play, and then time to process.
Okay. If you want that, please just send us an email and let us know if you're listening. Kristen at KristenRBPeterson.com. We'll make that happen.
Yay.
Oh my gosh. Could you imagine? I love
That'd be
ideas.
so fun. I would
Hmm.
be so lit, and it would be fun to like let you see all my other colors. The thing
Yeah.
is like I kn- most parents of the kids I've had would have said, "Oh, he's so sweet and calm. Like he's just like Mr. Rogers." And on the inside, I'm like this kind of like snarky dark horse that's kind of funny.
Uh-huh.
So I can't wait to like show people that side.
Oh, I can't wait to see more of that side.
It's coming.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for all your knowledge and
Thank you for
humanness.
making the space for us to share
Yeah.
knowledge.
I honestly feel I kind of, as we were talking about parenting styles, I feel like we came up with a new parenting style is like the human mess ness.
Yeah,
That's my
right.
parenting style.
Yeah,
And hey, like that just gave me a whole bunch of affirmation, validation that like it's a mess because I don't know
yeah.
what I'm doing half the time. I don't hold boundaries, but like I just I show up. I love my
You
children.
show up. Yeah.
Yeah.
The most re- like the thing that I say the most as a coach is just pay attention.
Mhm.
You know, it's not about a checklist. It's about paying attention to what's happening. So yeah, be messy because it's a lot going on.
Mhm. All right. Well, thank you. Where
Okay.
can people find you again? They weren't
Find me on
listening.
Instagram, Finn period Menzies. And then sign up on my Calendly. We can talk about so many different things.
Okay. Amazing.
Okay.
Where's your Calendly link in your Instagram?
Yeah, it's in my Instagram bio.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Wow. All right. Well, thank you for being here. Thanks for being open and honest and human. I appreciate you and the work that you're doing.
me too.
If you liked what you heard today, share this podcast with your coworkers, admin, or maybe even your partner. And I love getting 5-star reviews so more people can embrace play. Hit follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. Or connect with me on Instagram or my website, KristenRBPeterson.com. Until next time.